We're going to begin our service. If I can ask people to be seated, please. We're going to begin our service. Can people please be seated? Hey, how are you?
Mismor David, Adonai roi lo echsar, binote sheyarbitzeni al me menuchot yanachaleni, nafshi shovev, yanacheni v'magle tzedek l'ma'an shemo, Ngam ki relech begeht al mavet, lo irarai ki atahimati, shiftecha mishantecha, ema yenachamoni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan, Neged sorirai di shanta vashemen roshi kosiri vaya achto v'chesed yirdifuni kol yamei chayai v'shaveti b'veit Adonai L'orech yamim. Friends, I've read for you, chanted for you these words of our 23rd Psalm. When we are faced with difficult moments, when our hearts are aching, when we are in need of strength and comfort, we often turn to the psalmist. And so I invite you to recite these words with me now, as we say together, The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember him. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember him. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we will remember him. In the blueness of sky and in the warmth of summer, we will remember him. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember him. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we will remember him. When we are weary and in need of strength, we will remember him. When we are lost and sick at heart, we will remember him. And when we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember him. So long as we live, he too will live, for he is now a part of us, as we remember Harry Jed Weisman. To his children, to Hope, David and Scott, and also to Mike, Lisa and Amy, to his grandchildren, Justin and Krista, Zach and Rachel, Jacoby and Lindsay, Callie, Jocelyn, Lucas and Griffin, and to his great-grandchildren, Broxton, Brooklyn, Dominic, Blake, and Lillian. And today, friends, our hearts join together as we lovingly remember his daughter, Shelley, of blessed memory. To all the members of the family, to so many dear friends who are here with us today in person, and those who are able to join us virtually, today we gather, and while we gather with sad hearts, we gather to remember, but also to celebrate the life of your beloved Jed. Our sages in their wisdom have taught us that birth is a beginning and death a destination and life is a journey. from childhood to maturity and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness and from ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. One of the greatest lessons we are taught is that words which come from the heart, we know enter directly to the heart. Today, there are a number of the members of the family who wish to share words from their heart with all of us. Friends, I'd like to first call on his son, Dave. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. On behalf of my entire family, I want to thank you all for being here today to celebrate my dad's life. I'm Dave Weisman, his son. So one of the greatest gifts that my mom and dad gave us kids was their sense of organization. When my mom died, we found all of our letters and cards from when we were kids neatly stored in a container in her closet. Those cards served as a great inspiration for her eulogy, and my dad was just as giving in this way. Dad's vessel of choice was a highly organized set of file cabinets. My wife Lisa and I were going through those files when we came across a file labeled Jed, Personal. This thing was a treasure trove. His military papers, some of my mom's love letters, or really, really like letters, if we're being honest. Good. I was worried about that one. I'm glad that worked. And there, farther back in the file, were his original report cards from Fairfax Elementary School in Cleveland Heights. I suppose there are a few people who keep their report cards over 88 years for nostalgic reasons. But there's only one person who has his original elementary school report cards organized in chronological order in a manila envelope next to his desk in a file cabinet. And that person is my dad, Jed Weisman. And let me tell you, those teachers at Fairfax Elementary School, they totally got my dad. Ms. Hazel A. Smith, fourth grade teacher, quote, "I hope Jed will decide to get better control and do his talking at the proper time." Ms. R. Lampfer, fourth grade, semester 2, somewhat noisy this time. Ms. Ella Harmer, fifth grade, Jed is sometimes lacking in self-control, but generally tries to do his best. I don't know what their obsession with self-control and talking was. I don't know why those are related, but anyway. And then there were these absolute gems from my dad's third grade teacher, Ms. Margaret Mackey. "I have not been pleased with Jed's self-control this month. Entirely too much talking." And then this zinger. "Jed is a great many pounds overweight." Well, hello, Margaret Mackey. They don't make teachers like that anymore, I'll tell you. Like most dads, Jed tried to teach me about life through those father-son talks. His advice on financial matters basically came down to marry a woman who makes a lot of money, who doesn't like cruises. I did that. He told me to be organized. I tried. He told me to be on time. It was pointless. He told me to be kind to others. I listened. His advice on sex was pretty confusing to me. Is this okay, Canner? Okay. I figured she'd say yes. What's she going to say? After he and my mom explained it to me and my brother Scott over a family dinner when I was 11, I left the conversation understanding that this act was not only pretty scary to try, but you did it standing up, and you had to do it with a woman your height. It was not until I was about 14 that I connected what Jed had described with what I was watching in R-rated movies. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, it may have been my confusion because my brother Scott definitely understood what they had explained from the get-go. No, my dad's lessons were not the conventional ones. His lessons were more important. He taught us values. This is where it gets better. He taught us the value of hard work. He was up every morning and out the door by 7:30. To be good at anything, my dad believed hard work was the beginning, middle, and end of the recipe for success. He empowered us all to believe if we worked hard enough, success was ours to achieve. He taught us the value of teamwork. He treasured his colleagues at Weisman, Goldberg, and Weisman. My Uncle Fred was so kind and generous to my dad, and my dad knew it. Some of my dad's closest and dearest friends were the women at Weisman Goldberg. He insisted on calling them the girls because they like it. He was always so fond and respectful of Elaine, Donna, Carolyn, Mary Lou, Carrie, to name just a few. And again, on that point, I think Scott and I took away different lessons. I was always in awe of these women and quite frankly intimidated by them. Carolyn would crack her gum and tell everyone what to do. Donna Rosman used all these big words I didn't really understand. And it was kind of unnerving to me, but not for Scott. At 15, he was hitting on Debbie Chamberlain, my dad's legal assistant. He'll talk last, so he could say what he wants. If any of us understood my dad's lessons on hard work and teamwork, it was my sister Hope. Her family and their accomplishments, both on the athletic field and in the world of business, are the true testament of a father passing on his values to his daughter. Jed taught us the value of respect for others. Some of his closest and dearest friends were people who had very different career paths than his. My dad always found these people so interesting and genuine. Pat Mahoney, a gentleman who managed the parking garage at Terminal Tower office building, became a lifelong friend of my dad's. And Jed had this great friendship with Don Morehouse, Elaine's husband. Mr. Morehouse was this burly guy. He had a tattoo, and I was kind of scared of him when I first met him. But my dad saw a man of principle, a good friend, and a great husband. Those are the things that mattered to my dad, not what academic degree you had or whether you belonged to a country club or not. He cared about one thing and one thing only. Were you a good person? He taught us the value of friendship and community. Jed was a very friendly guy. Actually, anyone who would listen to his stories, he considered a friend. And people who listened to the same stories over and over, he considered dear friends. Before Facebook and social media, my dad learned the art of staying in touch. The friends of my mom from nursing school, like our Aunt Arlene Willen and Carolyn Mulroy, remained a part of my dad's life until he left us. Our neighbors from Lyndhurst, the Borsteins, the Blocks, the Michelles, and others, he treasured to the very end. And Jed kept collecting friends when he moved to Goodyear, Arizona. And there is Ann Schimmel-Vogt, my wife's best buddy. Ann and Lisa's visits to Goodyear inspired the concept of Jed Fest, a regular pilgrimage to Goodyear where the three of them drank, laughed, and watched Indian spring training. During one Jed Fest excursion to a swanky dinner location, two businessmen came upon Jed and Ann and Lisa enjoying a nightcap in the Arizona twilight. The guys asked my dad, "How did you get so lucky?" Without missing a beat, Jed quipped back, "Anything is possible when you pay for it." He was a good guy, I promise. Jed treasured his friendship with Ann like he treasured his friendship with all of his friends. He felt so fortunate to have each and every one of you and thought each of you were among the most special people to walk the earth. This is the harder part, so there's a long pause by design. Without question, Dad taught us the value of family. Another long pause. He was a role model as to the sanctity of marriage. He loved my mom until she left us, and even in her passing, he loved her still. True, within hours of her passing away, he started tossing her prescriptions and gathering the paperwork for the estate, but that doesn't mean he didn't love her. His OCD just kicked in a little strong that morning. He loved his children, and we all knew it. He was there for all of our celebrations and joys, and if we ever needed anything, he always answered. Even when he was far away, he was such a part of our lives. His doors were always open. There's another pause in here. Our phone calls were always answered with gusto. He embraced all of our spouses with that same love. He loved and respected Hope's husband, Mike, and that love was unfailing. His adoration for Amy, Scott's wife, was so open and strong. His love and fondness for Lisa was remarkable, especially after she encouraged him to order another shot of Dewar's and make it a double. And his love and pride for his grandchildren were equally as strong. He knew each of them, understood them, appreciated them, and valued them. Nothing meant more to my dad than his family. There's another scripted long pause here. Okay. Before I wrap up on a very personal note, I want to share how grateful I am to have Jed Weisman as my dad. My daughter told me to think of peanut butter and it'll help me get past, so I'm going to do that for a second. I feel blessed in so many ways. I've had professional accomplishments, and they came about because of my mom and dad's support, encouragement, and love. And more importantly to me, I have been so blessed in my personal life. I'm a husband to a wonderful and loving woman and 3 great kids. But in amidst all of those blessings, I have the blessing to say that it is my privilege and honor to have Jed Weisman as my dad. And that is a blessing I will always cherish. We're past the hard part. Okay, in closing, when people die, we often worry about filling the void, keeping memories alive, and working through the sadness. I don't plan on having those challenges in dealing with my dad's passing. Instead, I'm going to try to work hard, be respectful of others, embrace my friends, and love my family deeply and unequivocally. Each time I do those things, I know my dad will be smiling. And I encourage you all to do the same. I know he would absolutely love that. Thank you so much for being here and celebrating in his life. Thank you. Am I supposed to wipe this? Okay. Sure.
Oh, Dave, thank you so much. I want to call on one of the grandchildren, Jed's grandson, Zach.
Thank you, everyone, for coming today. Papa loves social gatherings, so we know he would have loved to have seen all of you today. We all know how tough this week has been, losing a man like Jed. In times like this, we always find ourselves reflecting, and so many emotions come flooding in. Whether it be the love we have for someone, funny stories involving the person we have lost, or lasting memories that we will cherish forever. Over the past week, obviously many of these things have been discussed within my immediate family. I wanted to read a message that all of us have put together. The lessons Dad, Papa taught us were many. And although you would think for a man with the gift of many, 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 many words, it would be through his words and stories. It actually wasn't. It was through the selfless way he lived life. He never needed anything material. a few polos and t-shirts, a couple of pairs of pants. One suit and tie was enough for him. He couldn't care where it was bought from, and he wouldn't even notice the brand. If you said Gucci to him, he would probably think you were tickling a baby. He was so simple in that way, but so deep in others. He wanted to make people happy every day. His kind actions, from not charging people for tasks during his law career, to making sure people felt appreciated, to volunteering, and so much more. Because he always wanted to give. And because material things were not important to him, he rarely gave material gifts. Yet he gave us so many gifts by giving through his heart and giving of himself anytime he could. Dad, while we heard you talk often, okay, very often, it's ironic that your silent messages, the ones you lived your life by, are the ones we will continue to hear loud and clear. You will be so greatly missed, but you will live on in all of us forever. I like this little pause thing. You gave me some good ideas. When I was a little kid, I quickly realized I was different from my two brothers. That's right. I got the Weisman genes. When my two brothers were playing with trucks and going to work with our dad, I was playing sports, falling for girls way too quickly, finding out I was colorblind, and as time went on, realizing I was blessed with that irresistible, sexy, shiny, bald head. Thank you for all of those things, Papa. I can vividly remember going up to Cleveland as a little kid and visiting Papa at his office in Tower City. My brothers and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Papa would walk us around the entire office, say hi to everyone, and he would constantly be dropping knowledge in regards to law and different cases that were going on in the office at that time. And then once he saw we put our work in, he would treat us to the food court in Tower City. And we'd be allowed to see the water fountains going through the middle of the mall, which was the ultimate prize for us boys. He always got the office's Indians tickets for those trips as well. Papa, being a giver he always was, wanted to make sure us boys all had fun, and he knew some things at the game were more important to us than others. So he would get tickets to the Terrace Club for the beginning of the game. The Terrace Club buffet was a major hit for some of us. And then halfway through the game, he would go down to our seats right along the third base line as he knew some of us wanted to be right in the action. Papa would always sit right next to me, both of us locked into the game, talking ball the entire time. He would give so much knowledge about the game and the players. I learned so much from him in those games early in my life, made me fall in love with the game of baseball. Papa was a teacher through and through. I firmly believe that was his passion in life. When I was old enough to do things on my own, I can remember Papa telling me him and I were going to make a trip. It was almost like a sign of approval from him that I was maturing and it was time to take that next step in life. Again, teaching. So we decided to make a trip to Chicago to visit Annalie's uncle David and Jocelyn. We could have easily flown from Cleveland to Chicago, but no. Papa knew we had one-on-one time and it was time for him to teach. So we boarded the Amtrak from Cleveland to Chicago and off we went. Every little town we passed along the way, he would drop any little-known fact he knew about it. Papa was even a teacher during times of sudden panic. He would sit down and discuss your decisions that you made if maybe you didn't make the right ones. For example, I added this story, so I'm going off script here. For example, Kobe wanted me to add this early on. When we were younger, our Nana was in the hospital, and my mom brought Jacoby and I up there. And when they were at the hospital, Jacoby and I loved to play football and basketball, one-on-one. So, of course, we turned Nana and Papa's living room into a football field. As you guys can imagine or remember, there was that sectional couch that went up almost to the back side of it was towards the front door. And there were always these big vases standing on the back side of it. Well, Jacoby thought it was a good idea to spear me into the couch one time, which I still think was a cheap shot, but speared me into the couch. Next thing you know, the vase is on the ground, shattered everywhere. So him and I look at each other, get up, and think, what's the right thing to do? We got to clean up. So we start cleaning up all the pieces of the vase. Little do we know, we look down and we think it's someone's ashes that were inside of it. So after we clean up the vase, we still look at each other, haven't called my mom yet, and we thought the best thing to do was to vacuum them up. So we vacuumed the ashes. Papa, you're lucky you're not getting cremated. Otherwise, you might end up in Kobe's vacuum. But even during that time, he came home and he sat us down. Instead of getting upset, even though it was Nana Choo-Choo's favorite vase, there was a learning point. And Papa was that kind of guy. As time went on, Papa went from that teacher with so much knowledge to the ultimate cheerleader. Every phone call went about the same exact way. He would first ask about Callie's softball and try to get any insight of her games, training, or recruiting. His excuse for this was always, she's the baby, the most athletic one, and so I have to talk about her first. We would then move on to diving headfirst into my previous week's games, futures games, and the landscape of college football. Papa would ask so many detailed questions about the previous week's games because he would tape them and watch them about 5 times. That I didn't know if I was in a meeting with my coach, answering a reporter's questions, or on the phone with him. He would get so excited talking about the plays or blocks my brothers and I would make, and he was never one to restrain from making comments about what we could have done better. Again, coaching. He also never failed to mention in every phone call that his Ohio Westland team would have given our Ohio State team a run for our money. My response, every single time with a slight laugh, I am sure it would have been one hell of a game, Papa. We would then move on to the Cleveland Indians, and depending on the time of year, we would talk about their current play or the moves they needed to make in the offseason to finally get that World Series title. I swear we could have been a joint general manager for the Indians. As we wrapped up the conversation, he would always make a subtle remark about my dating life and wanted as much juicy gossip as he could get. Don't worry, Rachel, I did not give him much. Fast forward to the past year or so. This is the hard part. With peanut butter, right, Jocelyn? I've never heard that one. Fast forward to the past year or so. Papa was as sharp as it gets. He could remember every little detail about every conversation, still go into full detail about stories from the 50s. Our phone conversations were still happening, but now, like clockwork, the topics were the weather in Phoenix, what was for dinner that night, a full breakdown of the Buckeyes, Browns, and Indians, how each of our golf games were at that moment, and a brief recap of how the family was doing, especially with all the little ones running around. Then one day, the typical phone conversation got a new topic added. I have a girlfriend, Jed. Can you believe that? I don't know if he was shocked, if he was waiting for me to drop the gossip on how it happened. Peanut butter, right? Or if he was thinking of the proper questions to ask, but it might have been one of the only times I've seen him searching for words in his head. Obviously, the phone conversation wasn't going to end until he got all the information he wanted. Those phone conversations quickly transitioned into FaceTime calls because he wanted to see who this mysterious girl was and see for himself, which always came with a comment from him of, turn the camera more towards Rachel. I want to see more of her than you. Rachel, Papa, and I had some great conversations, especially Papa knowing he had someone new to share all of his stories with. That all of us heard of many times, so a fresh set of ears to Papa meant words were flowing freely. I think the worst part about Papa, being as sharp as he was that he knew his body was starting to fail, and it started to scare him. As soon as he found out that Rachel and I were engaged, he wouldn't let one FaceTime go where he didn't say, I just hope to make it to your wedding in June. We knew being there was so important to him. Kobe, I might need backup. Hell, Rachel and I even talked about flying out to Phoenix without anyone knowing, picking up Papa, going to the courthouse to get married and throwing our own small celebration with him because we knew how badly he wanted to be a part of that moment. I can promise you, Papa, that you will have a seat at our wedding with a double scotch poured, and we'll make sure everyone knows that you were there in spirit. You have been such a huge part of our born family's life, and I want you to know that we will all miss you so much, and that your spirit and memories will continue to live in all of us. We love you, Papa.
Thank you, Zach. Friends, I now want to call on the youngest grandson, Jed's grandson, Griffin.
Well, that one hurt. Hi, guys. My name is Griffin, and I'm Jed's youngest grandchild. Looking across this room, I know that there's nothing that would make Papa happier than to see a group of people gathered just to talk about him. I think he'd just be mad that he didn't get to talk about himself, which was a favorite hobby of his. This summer, my sweet mother crafted a plan to throw a party where we invite all of our family friends to gather around and let Papa talk about anything and everything his heart could possibly desire. Based on what I mentioned earlier, you can imagine his favorite talking points. Call it devious, call it funny. My father and uncle created a list of Jed's favorite topics and incentivized my friends to coax Jed into bringing these topics and the stories related to them up without using certain keywords. If you think that these topics were fairly appropriate and respected Papa's boundaries, you've never seen my father and uncle when they are together. The constitution of morality and respect that my father so strictly lives by is quickly tossed out the window the moment Uncle Scott brings out the tequila. You can imagine the horror on a 19-year-old kid's face in finding out that he is tasked with approaching an old man he's never met with the goal of trying to engage him in a conversation about my deceased grandmother's legs that were of such interest to Papa. Nonetheless, my friend attempted this after reassurance from my father. And let me tell you this, Jed was not fazed for 1 second when this conversation was brought up. Jumping from topic to topic, buzz 19-year-old to buzz 19-year-old, Jed talked more in that night than I've literally ever seen one person talk, and that is absolutely not an exaggeration. Throughout that night, I saw my friends completely mesmerized by a man who enchanted my life for 18 years. Now, do not mistake my grandfather's, let's call it, propensity to talk about himself with him being selfish. The last thing Jed Weisman was in his nearly 9 decades here was selfish. In fact, I'm hard-pressed to name someone more selfless than Papa. Never once did I question his undying love, support, and dedication to me and my entire family. His fierce loyalty is unmatched by anything I've ever seen. This summer, I had a 10-minute conversation with him in which he became enraged about my father getting cut from the basketball team when he was a sophomore in high school in 1980. Even with so much of his energy dedicated to the people around him and his family, Jed lived the hell out of his life. To quote Braveheart, every man dies, not every man truly lives. Bet you didn't expect Mel Gibson to be quoted at a Jewish funeral, right? I think this is a very good representation of Jed and how he approached life every day. Within the grieving process, I found peace and confidently believing that Jed ended his life with a sense of fulfillment about how he lived. I think that this is something we should all strive for, and it is an unbelievably valuable parting lesson from a man who taught me so much. Peanut butter. Papa gave me so much in my short life, nothing more consequential than my father. My dad has shown me the full template of how to be a truly spectacular person just through how he carries himself day in and day out. Having someone like that in my life who makes me want to be a better person every day is invaluable. And for that, I will forever be indebted to Papa. As I close this out, I know there will never be a day where I don't miss having Papa here on earth with us. But his spirit, attitude, and lessons are some things I'm confident I will never be without. Thank you for coming to celebrate such a special man with us.
Thank you so much, Griffin. We're now going to invite his granddaughter, Jocelyn, to come up and share words with us.
Hi, everyone. For those of you I haven't had the chance to meet, I'm Jocelyn Weisman, Jed's favorite Chicago granddaughter. He always introduced me that way, which has always been very hard for my sister. I'm just kidding, I only have 2 brothers. That's the whole joke. That'd be so mean. I'm here to say a few words about our beloved Papa, a man who is full of life, to say the very least. Jed was what I like to call a happy crier, someone who cries when they're a bit happy. I sometimes hear people say that they've only seen the men in their family cry once or twice. Those people are not Weismans. I inherited this trait from my papa. I'm a happy crier, and growing up, I hated it. One particular Thanksgiving dinner years ago, I told Papa how much I hated this shared characteristic of ours. I asked him how he could seem so comfortable crying through his Thanksgiving toast in front of everyone. He told me that at his age, having this much to be happy about would bring anyone to tears. He said that if I can have that perspective when I'm young, life will seem all the more full and joyful. At the time, I was like, that's really easy for you to say. You don't have to wear mascara. I was 15, so sort of like in the height of my bitchy phase. But Papa was right. Tears of joy are a blessing, as they remind you how much there is to be happy about. I think all the tears we shed today are tears of joy, remembering a man who led a full, long life that he loved, in which he found so many things to be happy about. Of all these things, what Papa loved most was his family. He got to live most of his life with his older brother, Fred, who he adored, who we all adored. When he lost my Nana, his wife, Harriet, he lost his life partner. However, he gained the opportunity to eat whatever he wanted. I know that he missed her, but I saw him order 2 personal desserts at more than one restaurant in my life. So at that point, it's sort of a trade-off. I think the hardest thing my papa lived through was losing my Aunt Shelley, his oldest child. He told me once that he was glad my Nana didn't have to live through losing her daughter. He could truly always find a silver lining. I shed happy tears today knowing he is reunited with them both. As for the rest of his family, we are lucky enough to be together today. His second oldest, my Aunt Hope, hung the moon. He was so proud of how smart and strong she is. He always talked about what an incredible mother and grandmother she is, and praised her and my Uncle Mike for cultivating such a close, strong, successful family. And boy, was he proud of my cousins. Justin and Jacoby and their wives, Krista and Lindsay, gave Jed a chance to know his great-grandchildren, which he cherished endlessly. They gave him new life. Although a few months ago, Papa mentioned to me that he didn't want any grandchildren from me anytime soon. And I was like, don't worry, Papa, I'm on birth control. And then he acted like I was overstepping. And I was like, you literally brought it up. You asked me to okay? I hope that's kosher. I know Papa really wanted to make it to my cousin Zach's wedding to his fiancée Rachel this summer. But, and I already had this written, I think we all know that he will be there with all of us, wearing what I'm sure will be a gorgeous tuxedo. And Callie, Papa's only other granddaughter. God, she's stiff competition. She was a D1 athlete who graduated college in like 2 years. Come on. He was beyond proud of all of her accomplishments, and even prouder of who she is as a person. A kind, beautiful young woman who cherishes her family as much as he did. His third oldest happens to be my dad, Dave Weisman. He was the first bald guy that talked. Papa loved my dad. He always reminded me that my dad was such a good dad because David himself had a really great dad. Papa had an incredible ability to compliment himself, another trait that I inherited from him. I mean, this is a pretty good speech, right? I wrote it myself. Papa was so proud of everything my dad has accomplished, but I think the thing he loved seeing most is what a great husband and dad David is. He loved my mother, who lost her own father when she was about my age. Papa stepped into that role seamlessly when she joined the family, and he was happy to do so, as he knew how lucky they both were to have one another. He loved so much about my brothers. He loved my brother Lucas's musical ability. He would sit by the piano and listen to him play, absolutely amazed every single time. He loved my brother Griffin's zest for life, and zest for baseball, and zest for fun, and zest for beer. Despite my two brothers' differences, which he celebrated, he also loved their commonalities, being thoughtful, giving, and truly kind young men. He was as proud of them as I am. And my Uncle Scott. Papa loved all three of Uncle Scott's wives. But there was no competition regarding who he loved most. It was the second to last one, Denise. No, Papa adored my Aunt Amy and, like my mother, thought of her as his daughter. I know Papa thought the world of Scott because he always told me that him and Scott were incredibly similar. He told me that they were the same because they both could naturally take charge of a room, which is sort of like me saying I look like Margot Robbie because we're both 5'6". I mean, technically it's true, but it's just different. But he watched my hilarious, brilliant Uncle Scott, and he thought, he's just like me. And for that, I am happy. Lastly, all of you. Everyone here added joy to Papa's life because that's exactly how he lived, finding joy everywhere he looked. He saw the best in everyone, and he had a knack for remembering something about everyone he met. So I thank you all for bringing happiness to the man who brought so much to those around him. If he were here, he would thank you too, crying his famous happy tears. And he would be able to remember at least something about each and every one of you. And then he would find a way to relate that thing to the fact that he played college football. And then he'd talk about that for 50 minutes straight, no breaks. Thank you all for being here, and thank you to Papa for bringing us all together.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And finally, friends, I want to call on his son, Scott.
Well, I thought this was going to be easy till I heard all that. Anybody who knows me knows there's not enough peanut butter for me to think about to do this. Pops, here I am batting fifth. I'm Jed's youngest son, Scott. The person who up until 2 weeks ago, when we were together, he always introduced us as baby. Before I have anything to say, I do have some words I need to share that his dear friend from Pebble Creek, Pat Harena, sent to us and asked that I share. Pat's not here today, so I'm going to share these, and I did take some liberties. Jed Weisman was well known in the Pebble Creek community in Arizona, where he retired to and will be missed by all that knew him. He took advantage of nearly all they offered. He golfed. He joined the Putters Club, the Shalom Club. He enjoyed the singing concerts, the live theater productions, the March spring training baseball games of his beloved Indians. His involvement until his final days with Care Bears, an organization that offers free medical equipment and rides to medical appointments to the residents of Pebble Creek. Every once in a while, even looked into the windows of the Pebble Creek Fitness Center to see how others stayed in shape. That was the liberty. She didn't. This part from Pat, I took no liberties with at all, and it is verbatim. One of the most important actions was his personal involvement of helping others. His genuine concern for problem solving and extending a hand of kindness to anyone who needed it. He knew how to get to the heart of the problem, how to solve it. He was unselfish towards others. He was a huge part of Pat's life and many others. Although Pat's not here from Arizona today, we all thank her for those kind words, which I guess now means I'm batting sixth. Some good news, though, and my dad will appreciate this. I'm last, so we'll be out of the inning after this. Also, fortunately for me, I'm off the hook on providing much detail. Zach talking about the family and everything else. Griffin, recent memories from just 2 months ago. My niece Jocelyn, description of my dad's feelings towards all of us. My brother Dave, of course, covered so many people in so many ways, and so much of my dad's life and history. So it's easy for me. I'll just talk about how he impacted me. So bear with me. I'm breaking my own rules here. Every closing argument I've ever given, any talk I've ever done in the career I'm currently in, I write 6 to 8 keywords on a piece of paper. And all I do is speak from the heart. And I never rehearse what I'm going to say. If I tried to do that today, we would never leave. So everybody in this room has their own memories of my dad. Everybody's going to remember him in their own way. Some may remember him by one or more of his different hats, titles, or where you knew him in his life. A friend, a schoolmate, a teammate, a teacher, a coach, a coworker, a lawyer, neighbor, brother to my dear Uncle Fred, cousin and uncle to so many, a great-grandfather, a grandfather, Hope's dad, Dave's dad, Scott's dad. For Hope, Mike, Dave, Lisa, Amy, and me, Dad, Pops, Popper, Jetty Poo. You may also remember him for how he was. Some of the easy things to remember about my dad. He was a storyteller, a long storyteller, much, much longer than the story needed to be. And he had no problem starting those stories with, "This is interesting," when they were anything but. He was someone who could laugh long and hard at a joke. Now, he could never retell that same joke correctly. But he could laugh, and he'd laugh until he cried. He was someone who could simply cry. You heard from Jocelyn. It's a trait he's passed down to a bunch of us. But as I think about my dad, it's really something relatively simple I remember. It's the word yes. I struggle to remember my dad saying no. It was not a word he used often. There were the obvious yeses from Jed. We probably all know and remember these. Yes, we should take a look at the dessert menu. Yes, it is 5 o'clock and we should have a drink. And of course, yes, we should have another. Yes, the Indians or Browns have a chance to be champions this season. I heard that for 56 years from him, at least when the season started. On a personal level, though, here's how yes by my dad impacted me. When I was really young, it was yeses like, yes, we can go play catch. Yes, you can come with me while I run this or that errand he was going on, usually to Forest City. Yes, I will be at your game. Yes, I'll be at your school concert. And I thought, wow, there's nothing my dad won't do with me. Then as I got a little older, it was yeses like, yes, I will teach you how to be a catcher. Yes, I will teach you how to punt. Yes, I will show you how to cut the lawn. I thought, wow, there's nothing my dad doesn't think I can do. Side note here, I was a terrible catcher, an all-around terrible baseball player, and I now do realize the lawn cutting was just for his benefit. At some point in my life, I realized saying yes was just my dad. Yes is like if the Borsteins were having a big cookout and needed to borrow an extra picnic table. It was, yes, of course you can use ours, and yes, I will send the boys over to your house with it. If Mr. Michelle needed to pick up a tiller for the garden, it was, yes, you can borrow my trusty Oldsmobile Vista Cruiser station wagon with wood panels to pick it up. And yes, I will send the boys to help you get it. Sending the boys was a common theme. I finally realized my dad saying yes was simply part of his makeup. His overall always finding the positive in everything, willingness to do for others in his view of life. He had hardly an ounce of negativity in him, other than towards a recent ex-president. And while I know that's not appropriate in a eulogy, trust me, he would want me to mention it. He had such a positive outlook and attitude, I can only remember 2 times he ever got mad at me in my entire life. And for those of you who know me, that's quite a feat. I mean, Hope's been mad at me 4 times already today, and it's what, 11:30? So I also only say 2 times I remember him being mad at me because I'm told there was a 3rd time, but I was 15 and so drunk I don't remember, so I don't even count that one. His always positive views explains his annual belief in the success of the Browns and the Indians before each season started. His ability to find the positives certainly explains the 50 years with Harriet. He was simply able to find the positives in everything. And I am sure all here have some memories of his abilities to do just that. I want to believe his positive attitude and willingness to do for others will at some point rub off on me. And maybe today some of it has. Because although I am overwhelmed with sadness that he's gone, I also realize I'm very fortunate for having had him for so long. And I know others have not been able to have their fathers for as long as I have, and for that I feel bad for them. And I will leave you with this. Is the world a little worse off when people like my father pass? The answer is the same simple answer that I remember about my dad. It's yes. But we're all better off for having had him in our life. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you to all the members of the family who shared today. When I spoke with Hope and Scott and Dave, Hope mentioned to me that Jed had a favorite song. You know, sometimes the family asks me to sing something in Hebrew or Yiddish. Once in a while, Frank Sinatra, My Way, comes up. But Hope, you surprised me. You told me your dad's favorite song was Adonalam. Now, I personally know about 30 different Adonalams. There's hundreds of them written, hundreds, same text, different melody. The text in the first paragraph, there's 5 verses. We're not going to do 5 verses, but we are going to do part of his favorite. The text in the verse reminds us that the God of the universe reigned the universe before anything was even created. And the last verse, which we will all do today, says the following: To God I commit my spirit in the time of sleep and in the time of awakening. And even if my spirit leaves, God is with me, and I will not fear. Now, there are slower Adonalams and there are more joyous ones, and this one is totally not appropriate for a funeral, but we're doing it. And we're asking, because I think Jed would like this, that you do the appropriate echo parts. Are we ready? Okay. This is Jed's Adonalam. Adonalam, Asher Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם, בידו הפקיד רוחי, בעת תשען וירא אדון עולם, באם רוחי גוויעתי, אדון עלי ולא ירא אדון עולם, אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת נשא בחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא אדון עולם. Actually, not so inappropriate, Hope. It's lovely, but it's very special that he liked that piece. Friends, before we conclude our service here and proceed to the Mount Olive Cemetery, a few announcements to share with you. First of all, following the internment at Mount Olive, the family will be receiving visitors at the Cleveland Marriott East, which is at Harvard Park, 26300 Harvard Road, until 6 p.m. today. And when you do go to visit, there is going to be at the Marriott a beautiful photo display with some of Jed's favorite music that you'll be hearing performed and arranged by his grandson, Lucas. It's very sweet. So you'll see those photographs and hear these pieces, Jed's favorite pieces, but the arranger and the performer, his grandson, Lucas. The family also wishes, of course, for me to thank all of you for your kindness and for your support during this very difficult time for them. Friends, if anyone wishes to make a donation in memory of Jed, the family has asked that you might consider the National Ovarian Cancer Coalition or, of course, any charity of your choice. At this time now, if you are able, I invite you to please rise for the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, shochen במרומים, המסמנו חנכונה תחת כנפך השכינה, ממלאות קדושים וטהורים כזוכר הרקיע מסעירים. שלח לה את נשמת יקירנו, שלח לעולמו בגן עדן תחיה מנוחתו, אנא בעל הרחמים אסתירךו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים. ותצור על ביצור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר Amen. O merciful God, who dwells on high, who is full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, to our dear departed Harry Jed Weisman. To Jed, who has gone now to his eternal home, we pray that his soul will be bound up in the bonds of eternal life, and we ask that his memory inspire all of us to noble and consecrated living. And to this we say, Amen. You may be seated.